what we are going to discuss is the nested for loop. Nested for loop. Nested for loop is basically, in case of nested for loop, means a for loop we can write inside another for loop, where we can write a for loop inside another for loop. That is called nested for loop. That means this is one for loop, and inside this for loop we can write another for loop. So this is basically called nested for loop, where there is a for loop within another for loop. So if you can identify, this is the body of this for loop and this is the body of another for loop. Okay. So we have a for loop, this is the body. Inside of that body we have used another for loop. So this is called nested for loop. And in this situation, this loop is called basically the outer for loop. This is called the outer for loop and this is called the inner for loop. This is called the outer for loop and this is called the inner for loop. Okay. Now what is the relation between this outer for loop and this is the inner for loop? How the nested for loop will execute? Then I will show a very simple program using nested for loop. So here, for example, I have considered a variable I equals to 1, I less than equals to 5, I plus plus. Okay. And here we have taken another variable in the inner for loop, that is j equals to 1, j less than equals to 3 and j plus plus. And here printf C program. Okay. So that is the program. Now how many times this C program will execute? That is the question. How many times this printf statement will get executed, or how many times we will get C program as output in the output screen? If we are using only this loop, easily we can say this C program will execute 5 times. This printf statement will execute 5 times. If we have only one loop, that is j, controlled by j, we can say that this printf statement will execute 3 times only. But this is a concept of nested for loop. Okay. So how many times it will get executed? That I will show through the process. So what happens in case of nested for loop? First we perform the initialization, number 1. In case of the outer for loop, so it will initialize the value. It will initialize the value. Then it will come to the condition. Then it will come to the condition. Now, if the condition is true, it will enter into the body of the loop. Okay? It will enter into the body of the loop. And after entering into the body of the loop, again one for loop is there. As soon as it enter into the for loop, it will fetch the next for loop. So for this next for loop, again it will perform this initialization operation. This initialization will be done. Okay. After this initialization, it will go to the condition of that particular for loop. If this condition is true, then it will come to the inner for loop. Okay. So first we come to the outer for loop. It will initialize the variable in the outer for loop. It will verify the condition of the outer for loop. If the outer for loop condition is true, it will enter into the inner for loop. It will enter into the inner for loop. And after entering into the inner for loop, similar process, initialization, then it will check the condition and comes to the. So this printf statement will get executed because this condition is true. So it will enter into the for loop. And this C program will get printed. This printf statement will be printed. After that, what will happen? It will come to the increment operation, because we are in the inner for loop. Okay, we are in the J for loop. If I say it is I for loop, if I call it is J for loop, then now we are inside the J for loop. So where we are inside the J for loop, obviously we will go to the increment part of that particular for loop. Okay, so from here we are not going to the outer for loop. From here we have to go to the inner for loop because we are inside the J for loop. So it will increase the value of J, which was previously 1. Now the value of J is 2 due to this increment operation, and from here it will come to the condition. From here it will come to the condition. Okay, so we are in the inner for loop. The condition is true, so again the C program will be printed. After that again it will go to the increment. So the value of J will become 3 now. So after the increment with the value of J 3, again it will come to the condition. So for the 3 it will again true. So the printf statement will again be executed. After that the value of J will become 4. And when the condition become false, then it will come out of the loop. When this condition is false. Okay. So when this condition J less than equals to 3, condition become false, it will come out. Okay. And from here, where it will go? It will go to the increment of the outer for loop now. Because now we are out of the inner for loop. Whenever we are out of the inner for loop, it will go to the increment part of that. So the value of I that we have started with 1. After that still we have not performed any increment operation. This is the first time we come to the I++. So now the value of I is equals to 2. So when the value of I is 2, again it will come to the condition. It will follow the execution process of the for loop. So the condition will be true. So if the condition is true, again it will come to the inner for loop. And when it is in the inner for loop, same process will repeat. For J equals to 1, then J equals to 2, then J equals to 3. For this 3 value of J, the inner for loop will execute. After that, again it will get back to I with the value of I equals to 3. Okay. So from this basically what we can conclude is, for the value of I equals to 1, the inner for loop will execute 3 times. For the value of I equals to 2, the inner for loop will execute another 3 times. For the value of I equals to 3, the inner for loop will execute another 3 times. In that way, the value of I will be 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Because the condition is I less than equals to 5. So the outer for loop will execute 5 times. And the inner for loop will execute 3 times for each value of I. Inner for loop will execute 3 times for each value of I. So from here we can say total 15 times this printf statement will get executed. So that is the way how we are executing the nested for loop. I am giving another very simple example of this, then I will come to a very small program that where we can apply this type of nested for loop, and using this what kind of program we can write. So if I consider this is my outer loop, and this is basically the inner loop. Okay. So from this easily you can see, or you can say that inner for loop we can execute if we can enter into the outer for loop. Okay. If we can enter into the outer for loop, means if we can satisfy the condition. So in both the cases, because as I have said, for loop is entry control loop. So in case of entry control loop, the condition will be at the entry point. So this is the condition. This is condition for outer for loop and this is the condition for inner for loop. Okay. So we are applying the condition at the end. Now, if we can satisfy the condition, then it will come here. If we can satisfy the condition, then it will come here. And after entering into the outer for loop, we will go to the inner for loop. But after satisfying this condition also. So that means the inner loop will be executed if the condition of the outer loop and the condition of the inner loop both are true. The condition of the outer loop and the condition of inner loop both are true. So here we satisfy the condition, enter. Here we satisfy the condition, then we enter into the inner for loop. Okay. So how many times we have satisfied the condition? Condition 1 and condition 2, 2 times. After entering into the inner for loop, it will execute. Here the for loop will get execute. Okay. The for loop will get execute. Now we cannot get out of the for loop until this condition become false. So once we are in the loop, we cannot get out of the loop until the condition become false. Generally it is not possible. Okay. So when we enter into the inner for loop, we have to execute the inner for loop depending on the condition. Now when the condition will be false, then it will get out of the loop. Okay. So this is for true condition we enter, and for false we get out of the loop. So when the condition is false, we get out of the loop. After getting out of the loop, okay, here it exits from the inner for loop and then it exits from the outer for loop also. Then it exits from the outer for loop also. Okay. If there is nothing is there, I am just considering the previous example. So from here again it will come to the condition. From here again it will come to the condition. Okay. So until and unless this condition become false, again this inner for loop will get executed. So that is the process. What we are doing here basically, as you can see, first we have to satisfy condition 1. If we can satisfy condition 1, we come to the body of the outer for loop, where we have to satisfy the second condition to get into the inner for loop. Then after satisfying, we enter into the inner for loop and we are executing it. Until this condition become false, we cannot get out of the loop. Until the condition become false, we cannot get out of the loop. We have to repeatedly execute it. Because once we are inside the loop, body of the loop, we cannot get out until the condition become false. So now we are at the inside of the inner for loop. After dissatisfying the condition, we get out of this. Then we come to the condition of the outer for loop again with performance of the increment. After performing the increment or decrement operation, again we come to the condition of the outer for loop. Okay. So here if we can satisfy the condition of the outer for loop, again the same process will repeat. Okay. So first we have to satisfy the condition of the outer for loop, then we satisfy the condition of the inner for loop, then we enter into the inner for loop, execute it, complete the inner for loop, again get back to the outer for loop. That is the way. Now in that way, here I have given example with two for loop. We can use n number of for loop within another for loop, depending on the program, depending on the problem. Okay. So for example, I have taken a very small program where nested for loop you can apply. We have to print a series like this. So how this series we can print? So first let us analyze why nested for loop is required here. How will you identify that to solve this problem we have to use nested for loop? if I consider this as a matrix, so you can see here 4 number of row is there. Row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, and as well as 4 number of column is there. Column 1, column 2, column 3, and column 4. So we have 4 number of row and we have 4 number of columns. Now in row 1, only one element is there. Whatever it is, only one element is there. In row 2, 2 elements are there. In row 3, 3 elements are there. In row 4, 4 elements are there. That means number of element is equals to number of row. So basically, how many controls are required here? What are the 2 variables we have here? The first variable is row 1, then row 2, row 3. So number of row is not fixed. Number of row is variable. Row 1, then row 2, then row 3, then row 4. Another is number of element, that is also not fixed. In row 1 we have 1 element, in row 2 we have 2 element, in row 3 we have 3 element, in row 4 we have 4 elements. So number of element is also changing. So 2 variables is there. One is row, another is number of element. And number of element is depending on number of row. Number of element is depending on number of row. So here is the concept of nested for loop, where we have 2 variables. And we have to print this element. We have to print this element multiple times. How many times it will print? That is depending on 2 things. The printf statement is depending on 2 things. One, number of element, another one is number of row. One is number of element, another one is number of row. In first row, only 1 element will print. Then it will go to the second row. It will change the row. We have to change the row where 2 element will be printed. Then we have to change the row again where 3 element will be printed. So 2 variables are there. Number of element printed in each row and number of row. Okay. So what we do? This is the outer for loop we have taken for row. Then inside this we have written for I equals to 1, I less than, it should be j. J less than equals to I, then j plus plus. Why I have written j equals to I? Because number of element, this j variable we have considered for, number of element, and number of element depends on number of row. So I is basically representing the row number. So that's why the condition is j less than equals to I. Then I am showing how it will execute. Then here I print the element, and here I use the new line. Okay. So how it will execute? Let me show you. So first we will start the execution where the value of I will be 1. With the value of I equals to 1, we will start the execution. The value of I equals to 1. Okay. So here consider the value of I is 1. So the condition is true. This condition will be true. So the inner for loop will execute. Now what is the value of j? That is equals to 1. So the value of I is 1 and the value of j is 1. What the condition is? J less than equals to I. That means we can write j, that is 1, less than equals to I, that is also 1. Okay. So the value of j we have started, or if you can consider what is the value of initial value of j and what will be the end value of j. The initial value 1, the end value is 1. Why? We have initialized j as 1, and I have said initialization means from where we are starting, and inside the condition what value we have provided, that is basically identifying or indicating the end of that. Okay. So here we have considered j equals to 1, so the initial value is 1, and j less than equals to I, the value of I is 1, so end value is 1. So how many times the printf statement should get executed? 1 time. The printf statement will execute one time only. So in the output we will get only one asterisk. In output we will get one asterisk. Okay. After that, new line. So we come to the next line. Okay, change of line. Here it will change the line. Then the value of I will be 2. Because from here it will go to the increment of I as per the flow of execution that we have discussed right now. So when the value of I is equal to 2, again it will enter into the inner for loop. Again into the inner for loop. So now the value of j that we have started with 1, always initialization will be done again because this is a fresh start. For I equals to 1 we have executed the loop. For I equal to 2 we are freshly, newly, again we are executing. So initialization will be done here again. So the value of j we have started from 1 up to 2 because j less than equals to I. Now the value of I is 2. So 1 and 2. So it will print 2 asterisks as this printf statement will execute 2 times. Again it will change the line. Now the value of I is 3. Now the value of I is 3. So if I consider the value of j will start from 1 up to 3. 1, then 2, then j less than I, which is 3 now. So it will 3. So it will print 3 asterisks now. Again it will change the line. The value of I is 4 now. The value of I is 4 now. So the value of j will move from 1 to 4. The range is 1 to 4. So it will print 4 asterisks as the printf statement will get 4. Then it will again change the line. Okay. Now the value of I will be 5. Now the value of I will be 5. But for the value of I equals to 5, this condition will become false. This condition will become false. So we are not, it will not at all execute. So what we are output here we are getting, that was the problem given to us. So in that way, by using nested for loop we can print different kinds of series. We can use this concept in matrix and other problems are there, lots of problems are there where we can use this concept of nested for loop to solve the problem.
Now this is a very small example of nested for loop. So here you basically if you see the result, our target is that we have to print a series like this. So now to print a series like this, if I analyze this output first, then I'm coming to the program. So this is our problem basically. We have to design a series like this. So in this problem, there is a series which has multiple rows and multiple columns. If you see the first row, in the first row we have only one column. In the second row we have two columns, or we can say two elements are there. In the third row we have three elements. In the fourth row we have four elements. In the fifth row in the 5 elements. So that means number of element is directly related to number of line, number of row. As you see in row 1 we have one element, in row 2 we have two elements, in row 3 we have three elements, and so on. Now here we need two for loop, one for loop for row and another for loop for number of element to be printed. So the first for loop that we are using for row, that for loop will basically change the line, change the row. First we will complete row 1, then we will move to row 2, then we will move to row 3, then we will move to row 4. So in that way we have to change the rows. So to change the row we need one for loop. Another for loop we need to print the number of element. If we are in the first row, it will print only one element. If we are in second row, it will print two elements. So that means this print statement will execute one time in row 1. The print statement will execute two times in row 2. The print statement will execute three times in row 3, and so on. So now come to the program. You see that here we have taken two for loop. This is the outer for loop and this is the inner for loop. The outer for loop is for changing the row and the inner for loop is controlling the execution of the printf statement. that how many time it will get executed. So as I want to print 10 lines, so that's why I have given the condition like this: I equals to 1 to I less than equals to 10. Now when I equals to 1, we are in line number 1. So come to the for loop. Now here you see the value of C is 1 initially, and the condition is C less than equals to I. So when the value of I is 1, then the loop will, this is the scope of the loop in our for loop. So the loop will execute one time. Now after that, when the value of I is 2, that means we are in line number 2. For line number 2, the value of I will be 2. So when the value of I is 2, then here instead of I, if you place 2, then you see the loop will iterate here. If it is 2, then the loop will iterate 2 times. Then when we are in line number 3, that means the value of I is also 3. So the condition will be C less than equals to 3. Now this inner for loop will execute 3 times. So the inner for loop, how many times the inner for loop is executed, will be executed, that we are controlling through the value of I. When the value of I is 1, it will execute 1 time. When the value of I is 2, it will execute 2 times. When the value of I is 10, it will execute 10 times. So let me execute the program and see, yes, we are getting the output that we are expecting. So after printing this line, it will go to the next line. That's why I have used the new line statement. So that is use of nested for loop. We can print patterns like this. Now I will show you some more example of nested for loop. Now this is called floyd triangle. Now we have to write a program to print this floyd triangle. So as you see, the previous series and this series has a very common structure, that is, as number of element is equals to number of line. As you see, in the first line we have 1 element, in the second line we have 2 element, in the third line we have 3 elements. Now what the value of the elements, that is different, but the number of element is directly depending on number of line. So as you see, the for loops also we have considered same. That's why that 1 up to n is equal to 10, because I want to print 10 lines, and then C equals to 1, C less than equals to I, C plus plus. So this for loop already we have discussed in the previous program. C is, we are controlling the value or execution of the printf statement depending on I. So when the value of I is 1, it will, this printf statement will execute 1 time. When the value of I will be 2, it will execute 2 times. When the value of I is 3, it will execute 3 times. So basically, so it will print the element depending on number of line. Now here see, we have taken a variable a as 1, and we are printing the value of a, and after that we are increasing the value of a. So initially the value of a will be 1. So when we will first time print the statement in line 1, it will print 1. Then the value of I will become 2. I will become 2. So second time when the printf statement will execute, it will print the value of a as 2. Then the value of a will be 3. So next printf will print the value of a is equal to 3. So that's why we have taken a separate variable a, that will for printing purpose basically. So in that way, by using this logic, we can print this floyd triangle. So as you see, basically by using this two for loop, we can control the lines and we can control the number of elements. And this printf statement is basically responsible for what element we will print, what will be the element that we are going to print. But using this for loop, we can only control the lines and the number of components. So let me execute. So see, we are getting the floyd triangle here successfully. It is executed. Now another example, that we want to print this diamond shape, which is built up using this asterisk. So how we will do it? So for this, what we have done, we have divided the program basically in 4 parts. The first series is a triangle, which is left aligned, then this triangle which is right aligned, and then these two opposite triangles. So basically you see this diamond series consists of 4 triangles. So if we can print the 4 triangles in that way, then easily we can get the diamond. So if you come to the program, look at this program, what we have done. So first we have taken the for loop that is for controlling the line, that k equals to 1, k less than equals to n, and k plus plus. Then this for loop we have taken for printing the space. As you see in the first line, before we come to the asterisk, before that we have some space, white space is there. So after printing the space, we have to print the asterisk. So here this is the for loop that we are using for printing the space. So how many spaces it will print, that is also depending on number of component basically. So here we have the space variable, and the space is equal to n minus 1. Minus 1 means one element, total n number of element will be printed here, but one element is the asterisk, so n number of minus 1 element will be there. That's why we have taken space as n1, and the loop is c equal to 1 and c less than equal to space. So what is the value of space in this example? The value of space is 9. Value of space is 9. So that means this printf statement will execute 9 times. This printf statement will execute 9 times. So here it will print 9 spaces. In the first line it will print 9 spaces. After that it will print 1 asterisk. Now if you move to the second line, you see there are 2 asterisks we have to print. That means 8 spaces will be there. In the third line, number of asterisks is 3 and 7 spaces are there. So number of space is decreasing gradually. If you look at this, number of space is gradually decreasing. Number of asterisks is increasing in this triangle. So here we have done the same concept. Using this for loop we are printing the space, and using this for loop we are printing the asterisk. Next we come to the triangle, left aligned triangle here. So this is the logic that we are using to